Welcome everybody joining us today for our webinar looking at business resilience and the road to recovery in 2021. I'm Matt Phillips. I'm the Business Development and Marketing Director for Old Mill. I'm going to be host, but we'll keep my input to an absolute minimum so we hear from our two excellent speakers, Nick Davies of Barclays and Jolyon Stonehouse of Old Mill. So whilst they're on the screen there, just on a slide, I'll tell you a little bit about both and they can then change and tell you what the actual story is later. Nick has worked with Barclays for 12 years in various departments, including business banking, business lending and digital. And currently educates businesses on digital topics, so including cybersecurity, data privacy, and how to optimize businesses' digital footprint. So we've got Nick today and potentially guest appearance from a 4-month-old in the background. So I have to see if that little one makes an appearance. We have Jolyon, part of, and in fact led the management buyout team that set up Old Mill in current form in 2006. Jolyon chairs the Old Mill board and heads our owner-managed business teams. Obviously has first-hand experience of running a business and uses that knowledge to support and advise our clients to help run their businesses better. And again, potential having a guest appearance, but I'll leave Jolyon to make the introductions later on. So first of all, I'll let you all know that we are recording today and we'll look to put it on the website so that you can all watch back again. A webinar so good, they watched it twice. Hope you've all had your coffee and biscuits for today, courtesy of Old Mill. If anybody hasn't received those in the post and would like them, there's a request form in your confirmation email. Can complete that by midday today. We'll ensure the pack is sent out to you. They are both really lovely, so I recommend you do so. The caffeine is pretty strong, so I'm sure once that kicks in, we're going to have plenty of questions for our two speakers. And if you'd like to ask a question, you can do so using the chat function on the screen. If you put in who the question's for, I'll then pick these up at the end and pose them to Nick and Jolyon. Any that you don't manage, if we don't manage to get through them today due to time, then we'll follow up after the event for you. So talking of questions, there's a couple for you guys to kick start. Very quick questions that will pop up on the screen for multiple choice. Then what we'll do is we will use those just very quick answers and to report back later on in the presentations through Nick and Jolyon. So let's see if we can have the first one pop up on the screen. Any second now, I'm sure it's going to pop up. Here we go. So hopefully you can all see that first one. So it's about pivoting your business. Have you had to pivot your business due to COVID? Leave it on there for people to answer. Okay, there's going to be 4 of these. The second one coming through. You can see the admin, but we're in a way in the background now. First one's not quite finished. I'm getting a message through, so people are scrambling now, not realizing they're going to have to do something, I think. So I sat there trying to click away on the screen, scramble back to computers. It's a bit strange not being able to see people on this. So next one coming through. Feels like the Eurovision. I think there might be a slight delay. Here we go. So this one's around cyber attack. So this one's probably going to be directed through to Nick's slide later. Has your business ever been victim to fraud or a cyber attack? Very simple, yes or no. I think probably, I'm sure we'll hear from Nick later on, but probably more topical at the moment than ever before. People working from home. Does it make us more vulnerable? Again, next one should be coming through very shortly. I think everyone's getting to the swing of this now. Looks as though it's going to happen a little bit quicker. So cash flow. Are you worrying about cash flow challenges in 2021? Okay, well, we've left a third option. So yes, no, and don't know for those that are very undecisive. Nice and easy. I'm sure that will head Jolyon's way for later on in the presentation. And final one to come through. So business plans. Have you had to amend your business plans for 2021, taking into account Brexit and COVID? Yes or no? Oh no, we've added one. There is a nice one. That's the fifth one we're coming through shortly. So final one coming on now, and this one is around about electric cars. So will your next car be electric? And again, very simple, yes, no, and we already have one. So quite topical at the moment. Lots in the news about those. And again, Jolyon's covering some of that off during his presentation. So nice and simple for the polls. So thank you very much for everybody for completing those. We'll come back to them, as I said. So on to the talks. So bit of about where we are. So we're in a global COVID pandemic. It has affected everybody in some form. Many business owners grappling with the impact. So it was only this week in the UK, we've reached sadly 100,000 deaths due to COVID. There's been disruption to working life, home life, social life. 12 months ago, we'd probably be sat here thinking there would be nothing on the news apart from Brexit. A short time away, and it's firmly back on the agenda as well as the impact of COVID. But amongst the negatives that we talk about, there's no doubt going to be opportunities, and we'll explore some of those a little bit more today as well. In recent weeks, the vaccine started to be rolled out in the UK. We have an agreement reached with the EU. So there's a bit of a backdrop of some progress amongst the disruption. And today's talks, we're going to look at the economic outlook with Nick, and then Jolyon's going to focus on the build of business resilience and tips for coming out of this in good shape. So that's it from me, trying to keep it brief. I'm going to unwrap those biscuits and get a coffee and sit back and hand over to Nick. So Nick, over to you.
Excellent, thanks very much, Matt, and I hope you can all hear me. And I'm just going to start sharing my screen. So this is the first test. So there we go. So hopefully you should be able to see a presentation on business resilience. So morning and welcome all. So today's webinar, we're going to be talking around business resilience through coronavirus, but also things like Brexit and also cyber as well. So hopefully this will be able to look at how you are able to manage your business through these current testing times. So just a quick intro about myself. So as Matt mentioned before, my name is Nick Davies. I'm a digital manager here at Barclays Bank, and I work in our specialist client solutions team. So we cover areas such as digital, international trade, and also high growth. So what are we going to talk about in the presentation? Well, jumping slides there. So we're going to talk about the practical considerations around things like, COVID and also Brexit as well, being such a big topic at the moment. We'll talk about impact on normal work conditions. Key consideration, how to spot social engineering, impersonation fraud, and keeping your business safe. And then a little bit of support with regards to how Barclays can help you and some further support going on as well. So let's get started off then with practical considerations. Now, whilst a post-transition period relationship with the EU is incredibly important, it's of course, quite right, we recognise that significant management time and effort has gone into managing the problems created by the pandemic and the subsequent economic downturn. So without question, UK business are facing two historic defining moments, and those businesses that have been reviewing their continuity and resilience plans will be better placed to succeed. So a key part of this is identifying issues now and acting upon them. Now, the following points can be applied to both pandemic as well as post-Brexit transition planning. So what are the practical considerations? Well, first of all, understanding your supply chains. So ensuring that your supply chains are robust with contingencies and alternatives identified. And that's going to allow you then to continue with your existing operations whilst protecting your business from serious challenges. We've already seen a number of businesses being able to reduce production because their suppliers, both domestic and even EU, are unable to fulfill orders due to issues associated with the pandemic. So do you understand your own supply chain and where key dependencies are? And have you identified alternative suppliers or indeed distribution? And do you know how robust your own supply chains really are? Also, with regards to Brexit, have you identified any new rules and regulations? Now, the government has been issuing updates and guidance on changes that are being made as to how we trade with the EU for many months. And these cover areas such as labelling, licenses, customs procedures and certification, amongst other things. So I think you can find some really good information if you visit the gov.uk website for more information there. Also ensure that additional costs are identified. So whilst the government has identified and it's reduced the imports to 87% of import to 0% trade tariffs upon leaving the EU, we know there's going to be no tariffs on trade between the UK and the EU, and the additional costs associated with custom declarations as well as customs and excise duties. So are you aware what tariffs may be applied to your goods for trade with the rest of the world? Are the additional costs being factored into your prices? Are you or your supplier or customer going to absorb these? And have you considered your foreign exchange exposure costs, or how you're going to manage your foreign exchange transactions? So will you use, for example, currency accounts? A big thing, and I was talking to a customer about this yesterday, was secure freight services. Now, whilst the volume of trade is not expected to increase exponentially, the administration is, and it's anticipated that the number of custom declarations made in 2021 is going to increase from 50 million per annum to 300 million. So many freight forwarders and customs agents are already advised of limited capacity, and this may impact upon your ability to ship goods. So I spoke with a gene company over in Anglia yesterday who was struggling getting their stock in from China because there was no freight holders there. Also ensure that staff are prepared. So if you have only traded with the EU to date, increased administration will need to be understood and managed. So your staff need to understand the requirements and bodies such as the Department of International Trade or the Institute of Export and how they can prepare. You should also consider how any EU staff you employ in the UK may be impacted by new immigration and residency rules, and how you could help them as an improved employer sponsor. And finally, work with your suppliers and customers. So by working with your partners, you're going to ensure that you know where your responsibilities lie and who is doing what to ensure continuity of business. Again, making sure that your EU partners are aware, you're planning, preparing and acting will give them confidence. And you may also be able to understand what you need, and the guidance for EU partners can also be found on the gov.uk website. So that's a big consideration this year. Like I say, both post-Brexit, but also COVID as well. Now let's talk about an impact on normal conditions. And nearly every business over the past few months has really been impacted by measures put in place by the government to slow down the spread of this virus. So the measures have impacts on three key areas. You've got your people, your operations, and your IT infrastructure. So businesses of all sizes really need to understand the impact this could have in the future on normal working conditions and the areas that need to be considered to minimise, wherever possible, the impact that the disruption has on your business. So first, if we look at some things to consider around your people. So how do you continue to support your staff if you need to self-isolate, and how can you make sure that social distancing and preventative measures are being adhered to? Do your staff have relevant PPE to do their role? And what changes have you made that allowed your staff to work? Are you considering well-being of your staff? And are you able to repurpose or retrain people? And finally, do you need to review people's hours or how many days people work? And do you understand the government support that's out there for you? Now, when looking at operations, over the last 12 months, have you changed how you do business? What challenges or benefits did that bring up for you? So we saw a number of business types alter how they do things to allow them to continue to trade. So to give you some background, as Matt mentioned before, I've got a 5-month-old baby, and some of the things we've had to embrace, things like online baby classes, for example. A big thing as well is bringing in things like food from restaurants, but make your own packs instead. So we've seen a lot of businesses change how they do things, and I'm sure Jolyon will talk about how business pivoted later on in the call as well. Also, how is your business premises set up to allow customers to enter, and are you following the relevant government guidelines? Can or is your business adopting more digital ways of working, and are your staff set up to be able to complete their day-to-day role remotely? Do you have a facility to have virtual meetings like we've got here today? And could you use cloud applications to share information and work collaboratively on documents? And have you made sure that key business tasks can be maintained even if you have staff that run well? And finally, is your IT sufficient to enable you to trade? So does everyone in a business have the necessary equipment and software to work from home? So things like your card readers, laptops, mobile phones, and is it all up to date as well? Also, are staff aware of the increased risk of working remotely? And we're going to look at that further on in the next slide. And does everyone require to have access to the relevant online banking platforms to be able to be able to do your role remotely there? So one thing I mentioned there was around making sure that people are aware of the increased risk of working remotely. So cybersecurity has been a big issue over the last sort of 12 months. Cybercrime and fraud has been on the up. So I'm going to talk about two key things here today on the presentation. One, I'm going to talk about social engineering, and then also going to talk about impersonation fraud. So social engineering, first of all, what is it exactly? Well, this is the task of a cybercriminal doing their research on you before they launch any form of attack. They'll use different tricks, different tactics to gather information, to then use that information against you, to then manipulate you into taking some form of action. So what is a criminal trying to take advantage of? Well, first of all, greed. So phishing emails often dangle financial rewards of some kind. So for example, by offering you to click on a link or enter login information. So if an email offers you something that seems too good to be true, it probably is. Urgency. So if an email provides a strict deadline for performing an action, be suspicious. So phishing emails will try to fluster recipients by creating a sense of urgency. Authority. So people naturally follow authority, and phishers do take advantage of this by sending emails that come from common sources of authority to generate panic. And finally, fear. So scaring recipients is a common threat in phishing emails here. So emails that threaten you with negative consequences or punishment should be treated with suspicion. So with that in mind, what are the key types of social engineering you might come across? So these are, like I say, really prevalent at the moment. And so the first one's phishing. So simply an email that purports to be from a genuine organization in order to get you to act on my email by clicking on links, opening attachments, making payments, or to get you to give away personal information. Next, you got vishing or voice phishing. So this is a spoof telephone call. Again, same types of tactic, but trying to get you to provide certain information on a phone call that then the fraudster could use to access and use your important accounts, or even assume your identity and open up new accounts. And finally, smishing. So that stands for SMS phishing. So it's a text message version of a phishing email. And the text message, that again is going to appear to come from an organization you deal with, and it may ask you to click on links, to pay money, to give away personal information, or to get you to call a premium rate telephone number. So social engineering there is really the practice of gathering that information to then use the information against you to then launch an attack. So with that in mind, what do they use that information for? Well, here is one common example, and it's impersonation fraud. And this has been rife over the last 12 months. So impersonation fraud is costing businesses in the UK millions and millions of pounds every single year. So what you can see on the screen here are two of the most common reported attacks from our business clients at Barclays, so our fraud team. So you have invoice fraud and you've got CEO fraud. So first of all, invoice fraud. Now this is quite simply where a cybercriminal will send you a fake invoice or a fake change of account details, hoping you're going to pay it. Now often they've done an awful lot of research prior to the invoice out to you. They're going to time this as well, a time that gives them the maximum chance of having success. And they also rely on the fact that so many businesses out there quite simply don't have processes in place to check over invoices or change of account details before going ahead and paying them. So how do you decipher the difference between a genuine invoice versus a fraudulent one? Well, really the red flag should be any change of details, but especially sort code and account numbers. So what you've got to be making sure of here is that you always verbally confirm with a known individual in that business that was a genuine invoice, a genuine change of account details, and you also get them to verbally confirm to you the sort code and the account number. And remember here that when you make that phone call, the best thing to do is don't use a telephone number that's provided to you on the email. Use a telephone number you know is a genuine telephone number for them, where you've gained it from a trusted source. Now, CEO fraud, this is a little bit different. So this is where the cyber criminal will either take control of a senior leader's email account, so we're going to hack in to the senior leader's email account, or we're going to spoof the senior leader's email account. So what they're doing here is they're creating an email address that looks very, very similar. Maybe a slight change, but an extra letter in there or an extra dot in the email address. So what they're doing here is they are pretending to be a boss or somebody of authority via email. So the next thing that's going to happen is they're going to send an email to a member of staff that requests them to make a payment. Now, more than likely, that member of staff will go ahead and send that money. Why? Well, simply, all they see here is an email from a boss that tells them to do something. So we do what a boss tells us to do. But we've got to flip this on its head now. We've got to make sure we empower our staff so they feel confident to verbally check every single internal payment request, regardless of who it comes from. So nobody's too important in a business to get a verbal check done on them before a payment is sent. So if we're in the office, which some people are currently, then the best thing to do is go and speak to the person face to face. If we're not in the office, get hold of their telephone number directly and call them. And what we do is we verbally confirm, first of all, that was a genuine request to make a payment. But even if it is genuine, still double check all the details of sort code, the account number, the amount, where that payment's going to be sent. Now, where I'm based at Barclays in Cheshire, we've got a fraud team based up here as well, and they send me genuine examples of Barclays' own customers falling foul to these types of frauds. And the biggest thing that I see here is, why do people, send money off to fraudsters? Well, it's because they're not checking over their invoices or change of account details verbally before going ahead and paying them. So there's one key message here I'm going to say to you today from Impersonation Fraud is any payment you're about to make, verbally check it first of all. So with regards to cybercrime fraud, it's been a big issue, like I say, over the last 12 months. And I think the main difference here is that in the past, we were sat in our offices, we were able to speak to people, we had certain processes in place. Now we're all set up from home. Okay, we're working, and do we still follow the same processes we have set in place? Now, some people will be doing, but other people won't be doing. Yes, we're working, in a different environment. It changes the way we do things here. So we really need to make sure actually we're following the right process to keep ourselves secure and safe. So with that in mind, there is some action you can take. So 4 areas of a cyber attack: survey, deliver, breach, and effect. But what you can do to make sure that you don't fall for these attacks. So first of all, in terms of the survey stage, this is all about education. Probably the biggest thing here, it's making sure that all staff members are educated to know what the key pitfalls are really for a business when it comes to cybercrime and fraud. So it's all about prevention. That's going to be the best way to protect yourself as a business. On the delivery stage, it's making sure you've got things like strong password policies, malware protection, secure configuration. That's just making sure that people really only use software that they do need to use, or you only give access to relevant people. Now, the breach stage is making sure that even if somebody does, attack you, you can still actually pick up something that's been successful. So do things like, patch your software, make sure that's up to date at all times. Train your staff on in knowing what to do when it comes to, these types of attacks, so you can react quickly. Make sure you've got good network defenses in place, things like firewalls and secure configuration. And with user access as well, making sure people, when they leave your business, having things like their access removed, or making sure people only have access they need it and only to the areas they do need. And I think this is a big one at the end here, the effect stage. So this is just about having the controls in place to continue your business. So do create a solid contingency plan to ensure least impact off the back of a cyber attack. So now we've got off the key areas. How here at Barclays are we trying to help our customers? Well, first of all, we are trying to help with things like, trade. So, we provide a range of payment and acceptance solutions. They include online banking, mobile, telephony, and branch payments, as well as international trade specific services, such as documentary collections and letters of credit. Also, we're trying to support through finance through growth. So So things like a standard traditional overdraft and term loans, but we can support you with things like credit cards and also asset finance and sales finance through referrals to some of our partners. Protecting your business, of course, international trade, which we talked about at the start there, relies significantly upon, a degree of trust. However, we can help you understand potential responsibilities and liabilities and the various trade instruments or regulations, and they include Incoterms. So we have our own specialist international trade team, like I said at the start of the call, and we can also look at maybe providing bonds, guarantees, or indemnity to support your activities as well. Here at Barclays as well, we're trying to help support staff, so we can help you prepare for the future through our digital education sessions and events, make cover areas such as cybersecurity, unlocking international opportunities, and also trading digitally, and also be able to create opportunities and deliver insights. So as part of our ongoing support for yourselves, we provide insights and updates via our Brexit and coronavirus hubs. So just going to bring up a few pages actually. So here's something I prepared earlier. So just to let you know, here at Barclays, we do have our own coronavirus help page here. So you can see there's things like the government support, the bounce back loan schemes, so you can get access to those, but also managing your money and your finances. So there's certainly support there, but also as well, certain products, and all the services which are going to be able to help you. And you can see there as well, Barclays business webinars. In terms of Brexit, there's their own dedicated Brexit hub as well. So again, you can find out further information and some key things to consider as well when trading abroad. And I will mention our webinars again. Like I say, these webinars, we run educational webinars on all different types of topics, including digital and international. You go onto a search engine, type in Barclays webinars, you will find our Eventbrite page. You can book onto any of these webinars, and these run on a daily basis. So some really useful information for yourselves as well. There is also further support out there as well. So this is, external organizations to try and help you manage things like the end of transition period. So you do have organizations such as the Gov website, so gov.uk, but also the Institute of Export, British Chambers of Commerce, the CBI, the FSB, and also the European Commission as well. And the National Trade Association bodies will also be able to help you too. So this brings me to the final page, and just to let you know, we do have obviously social media accounts. Should you want to follow us? We will open up later on to questions should you have any about the presentation. But now what we're going to do is we're going to actually pass over to Jolyon Stonehouse as well. He's going to talk about some business examples of how business have pivoted their business over the last sort of 12 months, but also opportunities for you as business owners as well. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pass it over to Jolyon. So over to you, Jolyon. I think you're on mute, Jolyon.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Is that better? Sorry, apologies. Let's try again. Thanks very much, Nick. Certainly, I've had lots of clients that have suffered and been attacked under cybercrime. So it's incredibly useful to know that you've given us some good advice there and some good support also on the Barclays website and through the webinars that you run. And I noticed that a high percentage of the businesses and the people on this morning's session have also seen that. Well, welcome, firstly, welcome to our kitchen. I won't describe it as my kitchen, but our kitchen. My wife, Ali, is a food technology teacher. She will be helping me this morning for reasons that will unfold. So here we are at the end of January, as Matt said, the week in which we had the news that we'd had 100,000 deaths. Awful. That's 1 million people affected on average. The psychologists tell us that 10 people are affected per death. So that's 1 million people who have been grieving. Public borrowing will hit 400 billion by the end of March, economists tell us. So this is a personal tragedy, and it's a tragedy for the UK economy. We still face, let's be candid, at least another 2 months of lockdown, I'm sure, through the winter months, which is hugely depressing and bound to challenge people and create mental health issues. So as Matt said, we do need some light at the end of what appears to be a very long tunnel. We need the vaccine rollout to accelerate. We need our businesses in the UK to build back better. This is a time when really, as small and medium-sized businesses, your country does need you. The innovators, the entrepreneurs and the business fighters are needed in 2021 to really get the economy going again as we come out of these difficult times. This morning, we cannot cook you breakfast as we normally would and serve you this morning. So I thought I would ask you 3 questions from our kitchen to help you diversify and pivot, to help you manage your cash flow and take maximum advantage of government help. 66% of you have said you've got cash flow worries in 2021. 86% of you have said you've had to pivot your business due to coronavirus. So this is a critical period, and I'm going to talk from here over breakfast to you. So let's start with what you would have been given if we weren't on this screen, the traditional British cooked breakfast, which looks absolutely delicious on your screens. Can you pivot your business to deal with the COVID crisis? Yes, you can. And I will share a series of examples from small businesses across our region showing that they can and they have fought back, the fight back success stories to inspire you. So here, the old cooked breakfast that we would have served you. Like COVID, I'm afraid, it is actually bad for you, the health professionals tell us. It takes ages to cook, particularly when I do it. It uses loads of pots and pans, loads of different processes and elements. So ultimately, good as it tastes, it is inefficient and ultimately, sadly, bad for us. So we could go to the new super healthy breakfast, the yogurt, the granola, the fresh berries and nuts. A fantastically healthy alternative. It's quick, it's easy, no energy is required to make it. But for many of us and many of your customers, it would be a very big leap for many people. Now, every single business book that we read, that the Harvard professors would ask us to look at, to improve our businesses, would tell us that making such a leap with our customers would be a leap too far. Because it would require new processes, it would require new staff, it would require new customers. So we've got to stick to what we know we can do well. I have a real example of a client who sold their business. They were in brassware and taps. They sold in 2013. We've discussed over the last few years what they might want to go into. And they told me they really like holidays and they like smart hotels. So they were going to buy and run a hotel. And I challenged them. Are you absolutely sure that you know enough about how to run a hotel? So after further discussions, Armira Limited has set up in late 2020, supplying bathroom taps and valves, but also furniture and loos and basins to the retail trade. So it's the same team, similar suppliers, and a similar customer base. Yes, they are diversifying from their original business that they ran in the noughties, but they are building back better rather than jumping miles and doing their hobby. So the cooked breakfast has 5 ingredients: bacon, sausage, baked beans, fried bread, and fried egg. Here's the new 2021 version. It's going to have 5 key ingredients: poached eggs, vine ripened tomatoes, delicious and healthy tender stem broccoli. It's going to have pita bread rather than fried bread. And the all-important ingredients, seeds, healthy, crunchy seeds to finish it off. This is going to be hot, it's going to be health, it's going to be tasty, and it's going to be versatile. You could serve it to your customers at breakfast, at brunch, or at lunch, and it's good to go as well. One of the key factors is the wider product appeal. You've only got one pan to cook, so this kitchen at the end will look beautiful. It's highly efficient, it's quick and efficient, and it doesn't use too much energy. And in reality, even I can do it. So here we go, the beginning of this journey, and I will show you how quick and efficient it is this morning. So first up, we pop the beautiful broccoli into the pan. The broccoli will cook for 2 minutes. Now, there is a pub in Wiveliscombe, beautiful Wiveliscombe on the Quantocks in Somerset. They had to shut down like many other pubs. So they bought themselves a delivery van and they branded it and they went out to the customers and they delivered food to their customers. What a fantastic, innovative, sensible idea. There is a business that I know in Yeovil. They are envelope suppliers, and the son-in-law runs a cleaning and hygiene products business further up towards London. So what the son-in-law did was he accessed all the PPE equipment and then spoke to his father-in-law and said, could we supply it to your customer base? Because ours is still quite small. So the bigger business combined with a smaller business to go to the customer base and supply them with all the much needed PPE equipment in 2020. What a fantastic case of thinking outside the box. And this is the sort of energy that we need. And there's a local business to me, John Thorner's. Understandably, their deliveries to the pub trade reduced. So they actually expanded significantly into their own home delivery food boxes that 2 major players that you would recognize on your doorstep have been doing. They also, in the middle of the coronavirus crisis, opened a new farm shop, which is booming. Another business I was involved in took the opportunity to significantly look at every aspect of their operations, and they ended up reducing their headcount by 1/3. Now, that was not because they desperately wanted to reduce their headcount, but they realized that they'd allowed inefficient business processes to work. So they have come back leaner and fitter, and they will be stronger in 2021 and beyond. And there's my 2 minutes. So the next element is the beautiful tomatoes. You will all know that these have got lots of lovely vitamins, so we'll pop these in for 30 seconds. Now, this really challenges me in because my little digital timer doesn't do 30 seconds, so I have to reset it for 1 minute and keep looking at it. That's not a very efficient process in my mind. There is a local cheese producing business. They have goats, they turn it into cheese. They used to do all of their business through wholesaling. They couldn't, so they instantly set up a user-friendly website that both their traders and retail customers could buy from. And the final story is a business who supplied to retailers pram stands, the sort of stands that Nick and his wife would have been looking at, and exhibition stands, all those lovely exhibitions at the NEC that no longer are running. The business stopped overnight. So that weekend, they got together as a family and they worked out what to do. They were going to build COVID-needy wash hand stands. And they built a website that weekend and they launched a brand. They then went to their sister business. Oh, and I've done it for a minute. My assistant has told me. So here we go. We cooked the broccoli and the tomatoes are still looking okay, despite what I'm being told from my right. So what I now do is I take these out and I pop them onto the plate, and the tomatoes are looking slightly sadder than my trainer would like. I'm popping the broccoli out, and this will all go into the bottom oven. Clearly you only need one oven, but just keep that warm. So the next key ingredient is pita bread, and I'm going to pop that in the toaster just here off screen. And when it comes back, it will be hot and it will also be cut. That's a clever little trick. So we've got the same water here that I put back on and bring to the boil. And this is where I've got to pop the poached egg in. So taking this knife, this is probably not the correct implement, I'm just going to stir the water to get a nice little swirl, deliver the egg very closely to the water, and that will need to cook for 3 minutes. So let's not get excited this time because I failed miserably last time. So it will bleep at me. And the hand you see is my trainer and the health and safety advisor to my right. So what happened to HWASH was amazing. So having launched and rebranded, they flew and dealt with PPE in Q2. So the business went brilliantly. But, and here's the real masterstroke, they had a sister business, as I said, that did van fit out. So what they did was they adapted their product and bolted it into the back of white vans. So they're now able to supply to building sites for the construction industry. What's then happened is those construction industry suppliers who supply into the construction industry have come back to them and said, we want a wider product range. Well, what a fantastic win-win. So they adapted something and it's now being supplied to construction sites across the company to keep them safe, but also we're going to see safer construction sites because they're going to build a suite of products there. So that's a great example of innovation, the can-do British attitude that we're going to need to get us through. So we have the poached egg now ready.
You had the 3 minutes?
Oh, I've not had my 3 minutes. I've had 1 minute and 30 seconds. So rightly being told to slow down and calm down. And in a minute, I'm going to put this great ensemble together. But this is the key. This is efficient. It's quick. It's a different business process that you'd be used to. And that, for me, is one of the big challenges. We, as an economy, have traditionally not been as efficient as our German and Japanese competitors. They do in 4 days what we do in 5 days. So if there's only one message you take away from this morning, it is that we have to deliver a similar product, taking less time and with greater efficiency. Now, clearly, in this world where we're approaching green challenges, if we can use less energy, then ultimately that's going to also help us with the challenges for 2030 and 2050. So here we go. This is putting it all together. I'll get the beautiful, fresh, if slightly overcooked tomatoes out of the bottom. Here's the pita bread, which I have to confess has been slightly cooked. So I'm going to put this together for you and show you what this delicious alternative will look like. In goes the beautiful broccoli. My trainer would say I should be using some tongs at this stage, but I have washed my hands about 3 times this morning. And in goes the tomatoes. And I will now add the highly healthy egg. And here we go. We'll put this here. I now realize I've not brought through. There we are. We have the plate if you want to make the egg. We put the egg onto the plate and then we just take the dampness off it and we pop the egg into the pita bread. Now we add the all-important nuts to the ingredient, and this is healthy. It changes the crunchiness, and if you really fancy, you'll certainly put a bit of salt and pepper on, and that'll make it taste good. And we've even got some chili flakes if you really need a bit of a morning wake up. I'm not going to pop those on because I need to continue to talk for the next 6 or 7 minutes. So here you go. Here is this most delicious new modern version of the British cooked breakfast, and I would bite into it, and it would probably go down my front on television, which I'd rather avoid. So forgive me if I may. I did eat it yesterday. It's absolutely delicious. So there you go. This is British innovation at its best. So what I'm now going to talk about is the issue of cash flow. So you've innovated, you've changed your business, but you're now worried that demand, cost challenges, shipping challenges that Nick talked about due to the COVID crisis interrupting shipping or due to Brexit. So I was talking to a Barclays bank manager the other day, and he said a lot of you got your Sybil's loans, you've left the money in the bank, and now you're actually giving it back. Please, let's just hang fire on this. As you get increasing demand in 2021, as the economy comes out, that will increase your cash flow requirements. For some of you, your buffer may have gone in 2020. You made some losses or flat profits, so you don't have those natural cash reserves. So are there any actions you can take to ensure you're not talking to a liquidator this autumn? And there are some. So here we go. I'll go through 5. The first thing, as I said, is hang on to your cash. Don't pay those loans back yet until you're absolutely sure that you've got through 22 and 23 and you've dealt with your cash. If you did make losses, unfortunately in 2020, get your accounts finished and get your corporation tax return in so you can get some of that cash you previously paid for 2019 back into your company, enabling you to invest for the future, giving you a renewed buffer. Spread your VAT out. Do you remember we can spread our VAT out from April over 12 months? Make sure, I had a client the other day, should I pay my VAT? No, absolutely not. Keep it in your bank account at the moment. Your VAT won't affect the 400 billion, so don't worry about it. Keep it in your business and get your R&D claim in. Usually R&D claims are done 2 years after, right on the limit. Don't do that. Get your 2020 R&D claim in as soon as you can and get that cash back into your business to help you. And finally, do some scenario planning with your cash flows, okay? Look at your cash flows and play with the key assumptions. There are probably 5 key assumptions you need to think about. There is reduced demand. How can I deal with reduced demand? Okay, and what you've got to do is you've got to play with your sales figures. And if you do that, you will find that your cash hits some pinch points, and you must understand those before they actually happen. Secondly, supply chain disruption. As Nick said, due to Brexit, due to the shipping crisis, stuff not coming in. So spread out your sales to see what happens, because if you can't deliver, you can't sell. Thirdly, think about cost pressures. Talk to your customers about price. I would say there is less end user discount being done on websites. So is it possible that if your customer supplies direct to the public, there is more margin that you've all got to play with in the supply chain? Think too about sourcing, okay, cost pressures and sourcing. Could you go to a different country? Because remember that different countries are supporting their businesses in different ways. So you might find out that actually you can get something that you previously got very cheaply from China from, let's say, Eastern Europe, and you bring it in. Yes, it is more expensive, but when you talk to your customer, they are then able to deliver to the end user. Don't rule anything out at the moment. When you're looking at your cash flows, think about efficiency, just as I've said this morning. How can we do things better, more quickly? Challenge everything. Talk to your staff. They're your biggest asset. What do they see as inefficiency within your business and what you could change, and then feed that back into your cash flow assumptions. And finally, the grimmest of the lot, cash loss, customer insolvency. These are undoubtedly going to rise throughout the year. So be careful when you're taking new customers on. Look at the accounts for your older customers. Do those credit checks. And as Nick highlighted, another classic item of cash loss is fraud. Okay, if you suddenly pay somebody 20, 30, 50,000 pounds, I've even heard, and Nick would horrify us with much greater numbers than that, then you will find that you suddenly don't have the cash to run your business. So finally then, can you get the government to help you actually build your business back better? And the answer is yes, you can. Okay, we know through COVID, there's self-employment income support scheme. We know there's the furlough scheme. We know that the government-backed loan scheme, the furlough scheme opens the end of April. Civils and bounce back open to the end of March. There's grants for the leisure and hospitality industry. Make sure you access all of these. And if you look at the Barclays website or the Old Mill website, you'll find there's lots of really useful data to help you get access. But if you need to, do email one of us and we'll send you the relevant links. This is critical that you get the money into your bank. The government wants you to invest. And so they offer you research and development tax credits. 46% tax relief in effect. I've got a client who used to supply staging for all the major festivals. Glastonbury, okay, yes, the famous pyramid stage. They used to put the guts into that. They did it at Reading and Leeds as well. Remember that fantastic site? Of course, that is a site that we didn't have in 2020. We're not going to have in 2021. So they've had to completely re-engineer their business. So what did they do? They started building temporary buildings for the TV and movie industry because the government is supporting those industries. And so although this looks really rather unexciting, look at that building. There's the outside and the inside. That was built in less than 3 months, okay? And now has Tom Cruise and the Mission Impossible 7 guys jumping around it, creating that fantastic movie brand. So this is the sort of innovation we need. Take what you can do and go and do it a bit differently with the same people and the same techniques. And the government will give you huge R&D tax credits to support. Annual investment allowance, don't forget that one, still up at 100% this year. Make sure you get investing. We traditionally are not a high capital investment economy. We have to be to improve our productivity. Patent box, we have the HWASH guys are patenting their next range of products. We're looking at setting up a patent box company, which would only pay 10% corporation tax. And finally, electric cars. Okay, half of you said your next car will be an electric car. Half of you said you won't. But look at this, for the half that didn't like it, look at this option from Porsche. Okay, fantastic. 100% tax relief when you buy it, 0% benefit in kind this year, only 1 and 2% next year. The Porsche Taycan, a really exciting adaptation of the future. This goes faster than a 911. You can sit, Nick can sit his daughter in the back. So it's got 4 proper seats. This is the sort of new future we should be looking for. And if you don't want to do 0 to 60 in about 2.5 seconds, buy a Renault Zoe. Fantastic electric cars that will give you huge incentives for the government. So let's get going. I've shown you can diversify, you're already doing it. You can protect your cash flows and you can take advantage of government support. Nick has shown you that there's some real challenges and there are ways that we need to make our businesses more secure and sensible in 2021. We are better placed to build back in 2021. And in this week of truly awful news, let's go back to our businesses and build some hope for Britain. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jolyon. And Nick, both fantastic. Lots of great content, both great talks. There's some questions already coming in, so keep firing them through, everybody. Jolyon, first one's for you. I think it might have something to do with sort of the energy that you've put across, but somebody's asking, what do you have for breakfast every morning?
Well, funnily enough, that very healthy option is what I eat. And one of our clients' daughters has set up some fantastic granola, healthy granola, handmade in Somerset. So yeah, I do have that. I then go out for a 15-minute walk, but I have to say at the weekend, I do treat myself to a cooked breakfast on a Saturday morning. Very good,
very good. Nick, there's one from you come in, which is, we know, I think Jolyon mentioned that 43% sort of in the poll had said that they had been a victim to cybercrime. So there's some questions about that. But what is the most important thing or things we should consider as a business to prevent those fraudulent attacks, if I could say it?
I certainly think staff training is key. I think, we're in this COVID situation where people, are working from different places now, and we need to be making sure that if we've got these processes in place when it comes to making payments, for example, that everybody knows what the process is. And I understand sometimes that, but we're quite busy people and in business, and things like when you come to check over an invoice or a request from the boss to do a payment, it adds extra time, 2, 3, 4 minutes making a phone call. But what I would say to yourselves there is, would you rather, you know, spend 3 or 4 minutes making a phone call, checking some details are correct and genuine, or risk sending, as you know, Jolyon mentioned before, 20, 30, 40, 50. I've seen a lot more than that, by the way. You know, so would you rather risk sending that, you know, and it could be going off to a fraudster? And the problem you've got as well with that is, once that money leaves your account, there is more than likely no chance of getting that money back. You know, that means then you're out of pocket, so it is going to massively affect your cash flow. So staff training is key. And I think, as well as knowing what the sort of processes are to make sure you're looking after yourselves and your payments there, it's making sure actually as well that people know what to do so they can react quickly as well. So if you were to have a, you know, malware attack your computer, for example, what do we do next? And I think people sometimes get a bit worried and might hide it, and that could obviously be a lot worse for companies. Somebody's trying to hide something, and actually if you act on it straight away, you could probably limit the attack itself. So yeah, definitely staff training is key. I'll promote my Barclays cybersecurity webinars again. So as you mentioned, they're online, so you want to get your staff on there. We also have videos as well, which you can send to yourselves if you do want to share it around all of your staff. But yeah, staff training is essential.
Okay, great. Thanks, Nick. Jolyon, there's one for you, which is more around the budget. And actually, you both may have something to say on this one. And I know we've also got another Nick in from Barclays as well, who may want to jump in. But the question, Jolyon, I'll put to you first was, I'll find it again in a second. What are you expecting in the March budget from Rishi Sunak?
Oh, lovely question. Lovely question.
Nice and broad.
Yes. I haven't got a crystal ball with me. I think the March budget will be mainly focused on opportunity, expansion, investment. I think it'll be support for employment. It'll be support for youth employment. I'm hoping to see some investment in, you know, green initiatives, and that's where I'd encourage businesses to follow the money, if I could use that phrase. Look for where opportunities that you can develop your business. Following the money, helping. If that government's money is going into the economy, it's up to us in business to really work with it to generate a positive, virtuous circle. I would say, by contrast, perhaps the autumn budget might be more focused on raising tax to get the money back. But my belief would be at the beginning of, I think it's the 3rd or 4th of March, I think it'll be hopefully investment opportunities and support for business and the economy.
Okay, brilliant. Anything from you guys from Barclays from that? Either Nick, I think Nick Davies, you may point that to Nick Porter.
I think he might. So I think that the key message from us will be that, bearing in mind that there will be the new son of COVID loan, I think it's been labelled as coming through, which is very focused on back to growth. So Jolyon is correct in his surmise, and that actually it will probably move towards what can we do to invest into the UK and future growth. Picking up on the green financing, we're very focused on that. We've set a target ourselves of providing 100 billion of green financing by 2030. And although at the moment we've started that since 2018, we've already lent about 13 billion of that 100 billion into the green financing, and some of that's mainly in bonds. I think it's about 78% of that at the moment, but we do anticipate that to go down to probably about 51%, with about 42% going up towards loans out in the economy. So the sort of things that we think will be the focus will be electric vehicles in 2021. Certainly infrastructure, so things like solar panels, home and energy efficiency, possible things around hydrogen. There's a lot of focus on agri-tech. So again, you know, we've just launched an Eagle Lab up in the north of the country, specifically on agri, to try and develop and support tech in that industry. And probably also a circular economy, so more of a regional play towards regeneration of funds within the regional areas. So one of the things that we are pressing the government for is to focus on regional growth funds at the moment. So at the moment, the existing funds are very much focused on job creation, but we think with a little bit more flexibility around the fund, it will probably help that job retention, but also business survival.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Nick. Really, really helpful. I've got a final question because I'm sort of seeing the time coming through. It's very specific, so I don't know, Jolyon, if you know details on this one in particular, but the government, somebody said, I heard the government had said that they're giving out £100 per member of staff we kept on after furlough. Do you know if this is still the case, and how and when can we apply for this?
Wow, that is a very specific question, yeah. And I'm going to have to admit to some fallibility here. I might know roughly how long to cook the poached egg for, but I think that's one that I will have to go back to somebody on, because that is, that level of detail, I'm pretty sure is on our website and linked.
It is. I will. I'll make sure we pick up with that directly and send message back directly, because I think, and I can point you in the direction of what we have on the website. And similarly, I'm sure there is something there from Barclays. What I'll do, and we are out of time. Thank you everybody for questions that you sent in. Thank you, Nick Davies, Nick Porter, and Jolyon, and your special guest as well, Jolyon. We've just put up on the screen there contact details for both Nick and Jolyon. So if you do have, and we'll try and come back as we will with that other question directly to those that we haven't been able to answer today. But if you do want to get in touch and there are things following on from the talk that you want to get in touch with Nick or Jolyon about, then do so. Contact details on the screen at the moment. That's it from us. Any final words, Jolyon, Nick, before we disappear? Excellent.
Good luck in 2021.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you everybody for joining us. Enjoy your day, and I hope you have a very successful 2021. Thanks very much, everybody.